Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Amanda, and I made this channel to help people get into medical school, as well as just share my journey in medical school and afterwards. So today's video is a little different. As you can see, I'm going to be going over my AMCAS application. This is probably going to be a long video. Before I get started, I just wanted to note that I'm currently filming this in January of 2024, so I'm still in the middle of my cycle, meaning I may or may not have gotten all the acceptances and interviews that I'm going to get. So when we go over my school list, I might have updates later in May. That's not really the full picture of all the interviews and acceptances I've gotten, hopefully. But yeah, just wanted to say I'm still in the middle of the cycle, but I did submit a while ago. So let's get started. Right away, the first thing I want you to notice is my submission date. So here we have May 30th, 2023 at 10:28 a.m. This was the very first day that the AMCAS application opened. And then it was processed a few days later, June 1st, 2023. So you really want to apply early. I think that's good advice for anyone applying to medical school. You really are putting yourself at a disadvantage by applying later in the cycle, considering it's rolling admissions. But especially if you're someone with weaknesses in their application, such as a low GPA, which was my case, I wanted to make sure I was as close as possible to being first. Because again, I didn't want to potentially disadvantage myself by applying later and going up against more competitive applicants. So that's the first thing. This first page is pretty boring. They're just kind of demographic, identifying information, some of which I erased or whited out. We have my ethnic self-identification. I was born in Puerto Rico, so I selected Hispanic, Puerto Rican. Again, nothing too interesting. We have language information up here. I was born in a Spanish-speaking household, so I of course speak Spanish. I of course speak English. And I minored in French in college. So I put advanced because I feel comfortable using it, but obviously I'm not native or functionally native. So that's that. Then we have some more information which I whited out. This is all like family income stuff that I didn't, I don't think it's super relevant. This part here is just about how you paid for undergrad. So I have had a need-based scholarship, so that's reflected there. Now we move on to this part, which is called Other Impactful Experiences. So I believe they renamed this from last time, or from last cycle. I think it was called the disadvantage statement, but now it's called Other Impactful Experiences. You still want to treat it the same. It's essentially an area where you're going to describe any situation that may have gotten in the way of your studies. So this is my impactful experience explanation. You can pause it and read it. I don't really want to go into it. It's very matter of fact. It's just kind of, this is what happened. These were my circumstances. And here are some hurdles that I had to overcome that maybe not everyone has to. Moving right along, you have some parent information, which I also whited out. It just asks their education level. As is shown here, both my parents got their bachelor's at schools in Puerto Rico, but that was the highest education level they had. I don't classify as disadvantaged. I can't remember why. I think it has something to do with my parents' education level. Also technically not first generation, even though I am first generation in medicine. I have no siblings. I had no institutional action, so I was clear there. Again, no misdemeanors, no nothing like that. Now we're getting into the good stuff, my grades. So as we can see here, I took several courses. Well, I didn't. Okay, that sounded weird. I went to the University of Pennsylvania, so I took courses there. I don't know why I said it that way. So I started, my first year was 2017. I graduated in 2021. And here we have all my courses. I'll go back up just to show you my not so great grade. So we can see here, Intro to Biology, I got a C. Gen Chem Lab B+, General Chem C. You know, just not great. Another C in Calc. We got another C in Organic Chemistry, a D in Physics. Like, we didn't do very hot these first couple semesters. C-, Biochem, C+, Physics. So again, not great. I did have some A's and B's sprinkled in there, usually from like French and other, like, I guess, easier courses. I did get an A- in vertebrate physiology. I remember taking that course and I loved it, so that was probably part of it. But all the other sort of pre-med courses I didn't do too great in, as you can see. However, starting like around here, things start to look up for me. You can see there's no more C's, they're just A's and B's. So I'll show you, right here, let me make a red line. Right here is where I start my post-bac. See, it changes from senior to post-bac. It's the same institution because I did my post-bac program at the same school I went to undergrad in. It was just easier for me, didn't have to move. I was accepted into the program, just made sense. So as you can see, immediately I started off pretty strong. I got 2 A's, 1 B+, which wasn't great. I was pretty concerned about that, but it ended up being okay. You can see I retook, didn't mean to do that. I retook Biochem and I got an A+. Well, technically, what's it called? AMCAS classifies A+ as A's, so that's why it looks different, but I got an A+. What else we got here? Some cancer cell bio, histology, cell communication disease, yada yada, all A's. So thankfully, this worked out in my favor, and you can see the final GPAs here. So this is a little confusing, so let me use different color. My cumulative undergraduate science GPA was a 3.09, even after the post-bac, which is still pretty low, but before the post-bac, I think it was under a 3. I think it was like 2.9 something, so getting it above a 3 was pretty good. My non-science GPA was 3.68, but they don't really look at that, I don't think. And my total GPA was a 3.29. On my transcript, my total GPA appears as a 3.31, but the way AMCAS classifies classes and stuff and like grades, it just came out to a 3.29. So that kind of sucked, but it's okay. So this is what my final GPA came out to with my post-bac classes, but before my post-bac classes, my GPA was a 3.19. So pretty good improvement there. And then my total post-bac GPA was a 3.89, which again, pretty good, showed a marked upward trend. So that's that. And then we get into the MCAT. I only took the MCAT once, thank God. I got a 518. I have a whole video about how I studied for that. Nothing much to see here. This is preview. This is one of the tests you have to take to apply to certain schools. It's like a situational judgment test. I got a 7 out of 9, which is fine. It's 92nd percentile, so it didn't, I don't think, it's a pretty good score overall. So happy with that. Now we get into my experiences. This is, I think I should make a separate video going into my experiences and how I wrote them and how I categorize them, because otherwise this video is going to be like an hour long. but I will just sort of glance over them. So the way these are organized are, I think, the ones you started most recently are going to be put first. So I just happen to have this hobby, which is learning French, or practicing French, I should have said, because I did start practicing French early last year, just for fun, and because I was going to Paris in March, so I wanted to kind of brush up on it, and I was doing that once a week. So, okay, those are my cats, if you heard that. So this is kind of a, I didn't say it was a meaningful experience, just a hobby, learning French. It's cool, something I care about, something I was doing every week, so I thought I would mention it. Next in here, we have a pretty important experience for me. This was my medical assistant job. I did classify it as a most meaningful experience. On AMCAS, you get to choose 3 most meaningful experiences, and what that means is you will have more than just this initial experience description. You see up here, I only get this many characters, but when you designate something as most meaningful, you get all these extra ones. So my medical assistant job was great. I started that job in October of 2022, and I actually quit it in October of 2023. You can see I have projected hours. I projected all the way into May of this year, but it's okay. It was a great job, but an interesting environment. So I left once I got an acceptance. This is my completed hours. So by the time I applied, I had 429 hours. I did this job part-time. It was a 2-day-a-week situation. So again, I won't get in too much to the description because I'll be here all day. But this experience was really great to see the ins and outs of patient care. And also we served a lot of Hispanic patients, so I got to be a translator for a lot of them, and that really showed me the importance and how much it means to them to have someone in this space that speaks Spanish that can help them coordinate things. So overall, great experience. Also taught me a lot about health insurance and how expensive things are, even if you have health insurance, and like ways to get around it, ways to advocate for your patient. So overall, great experience. I really, really highly recommend becoming a medical assistant as one of your clinical experiences. So that's that. Then we have this next one. I was a tutor for about a year with Learn2Be. That's an online tutoring platform. Not much. I didn't have many hours at that point, which is fine. 58 hours, anticipated 104. So not many hours, but something I thought I would mention because it was cool. It was a nice experience. Again, nothing much there. I can go into it more in a separate video. Then we have some research. This was another one of my most meaningful experiences. This is something I started, didn't mean to do all that. This is something I started 1 year after I graduated. So all these experiences I didn't do, in my 3 years of undergrad and then applied straight away. I don't think that would have been possible. I personally took a total of 3, or it's going to be 3 gap years by the time I matriculate. So all these things you're seeing were spread out. So don't freak out. So as I was saying, I started this gig a year after I graduated, so May 2022. And I found this research opportunity literally on my school's research directory. I was just like, I wanted to do something else, wanted to do more research, wanted to maybe get a publication. So I looked on the directory, emailed a bunch of people, I think maybe 20 people. I think maybe 3 got back to me, and this doctor was one of the ones who got back to me. We met on a Zoom call. She was fantastic, super sweet, and she basically put me on a project straight away that was going to lead to a publication. It still hasn't because of some more internal issues, but once we get that sorted, it should lead to a publication. And So I got super lucky with her. She does research in medical ethics and a little bit of like health policy stuff. So I really, really loved this experience. I learned so much about health insurance and the Affordable Care Act and bundled payments because that's what one of our projects was about. Um, we also started a separate project about xenotransplantation, which is still underway. But overall, I really loved this experience. That's why I classified it as most meaningful. Again, I can get into it in a separate video. Next, what do we have here? This was something I did. This is my job that I have now. I'm a clinical research coordinator in the cardiology department. So I've been doing this job since I graduated. So I graduated in May of 2021 and then started this job in August of 2021, and I'm still currently doing it. As the description says, I basically manage several device trials for a children's hospital. Well, not for the whole hospital, for the Department of Cardiology for my PI specifically. And obviously these hours look insane, but it's because it's my full-time job and I've been doing it it's going to be 3 years by the time I matriculate. So you don't need all these hours by any means. I didn't even classify this as a meaningful experience, not because it's not, but because I had other things that I felt were more meaningful. Next thing here, this is a little volunteer program I did. Not too many hours, but I did this for a whole summer. This is the Academic Associates program where I basically volunteered in the emergency department, and I would approach patients who were admitted or who were visiting the emergency department to get them to enroll in various research studies. It was very cool to be in the emergency department because I was sitting basically right next to the trauma bay, so I would see the traumas come in. Made me realize I don't know if I want to do emergency medicine because a lot of the times you sort of patch up a patient and then send them on to someone else, so there's not a lot of continuity of care, which is something that I care about. So it was I learned a lot in that way. I also learned a lot about, although I didn't really mention this, I kind of learned to come out of my shell a little bit because in this environment, patients are very, very sick and they often don't want to be bothered. And you have, like me coming up to them being like, hey, do you want to enroll in this trial? And a lot of times they're tired, they're on medications, they don't feel like speaking. So I kind of had to build up my self-confidence and not take it personally, if that makes sense. And I'm a pretty shy person. So in that respect, this was a cool experience as well. But again, not necessarily most meaningful. You only get 3. So here we go. Here we have another most meaningful experience. This was a volunteer experience. And notice I only have 64 hours, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I did do it from February to May of 2021. It's just that the shifts were, I think, 4 hours. I think that's what the math will tell you. Yeah. So not the most hours, but it was a relatively long time. I did it as long as I could. As I go into in the description, after May 2021, it was hard to continue the gig because they didn't need volunteers because most people had gotten vaccinated. There was just no need. So I would have kept doing it. I just really couldn't, but it was still meaningful. So don't let the amount of hours deter you. It's really more about the quality of the experience. So what I did here is I helped distribute COVID-19 vaccines to a health clinic in West Philly. I go into why it was so meaningful for me. I won't bore you guys with the details, but essentially, obviously by now we kind of take for granted how crazy it was to finally have a vaccine. And it was just very touching to see patients and hear their stories about how they're so excited to see their grandkids or their kids. Some of them had pretty terrible stories about their spouses passing away or them suffering some really severe complications from COVID. So, I mean, it was a really, really eye-opening experience. And that's why I classified it as such. So next, this is one of the research jobs I had in undergrad. So in undergrad, I did 2 work-study jobs. This was my second one. This one was pretty much all remote because it was happening during COVID. Still, I got quite a few hours out of it. It was mostly like data entry, data extraction, things like that, chart reviews. So nothing patient-facing necessarily, but still very interesting. We did some research on COVID. Again, no publications, but just cool to be part of some projects. So not most meaningful. What else do we have here? Oh yeah, so I was vice president of the Penn Barbell Club. I did this for, I guess, about a year and a half, so I spent a lot of time at the gym in undergrad, and I still do. And one year, the gym crew, like my gym friends and I, decided we should revamp the Penn Barbell Club because it used to exist, but the members graduated and went on to do other things. So we felt we should revamp it. So a couple of friends and I revived it. I became the vice president. We did a few fundraising things, did a few like group activities. Overall, very cool. It's not a medical thing. It's just a thing that I did because I wanted to do. And those things are totally fine, and you actually should mention them on your application. A perfect example of that, my next activity is a hobby. It's powerlifting. Do I mention it? Yeah, I had 2 state records in squat and deadlift. It sounds more impressive than it is. State records aren't like, huge deal. But it sounds impressive, and it is, decently impressive. So I mentioned it. It's kind of a random hobby. Again, not medical. But a lot of interviewers actually ask me about this, I think because it's unique and because it's different. So if you have something random, unique that you are good at or that you like doing, definitely mention it. Next up, this is my first research job that I had in undergrad. Again, this was work study. Had about 760 hours. Again, not much here. I was involved in some clinical research and some more like data entry stuff, yada yada. It was in cardiology. This part is true. After my dad passed away, he did have heart complications from dengue, so that's why when I was looking for jobs, I immediately looked into cardiology research. So yeah, that's that. We have some shadowing. I had several instances of shadowing, so I put them all under one, and I recommend you do that. It's kind of weird to put you want to use the space for more meaningful things, so I just kind of clumped all the shadowing together. These first 4 were isolated shadowing incidents, shadowing experiences. So I reached out to a doctor, said, hey, can I shadow you? I went for a couple hours and that was it. And then these last 2 here weren't really shadowing. I just mentioned it because I obviously did work with a cardiologist and a pulmonologist at my job. So I just kind of mentioned that in a blurb there. So that's that. Then we have, this is one of the very first volunteer experiences I had. So this was my second semester of my freshman year. I volunteered in the post-anesthesia care unit. Again, 80 hours, not much time, but something I did. I'm trying to remember. Let me read my description. Yeah, it was very nice to kind of connect these families after a loved one had surgery. They were very grateful and happy to see each other. So that was a cool one. Last one is honors, awards, recognitions. I was a Questbridge Scholar, which just meant that I got a scholarship to attend the University of Pennsylvania. This is something I applied to in high school. And I was not sure if I should mention this, but I didn't really have any other honors, awards, or recognitions, so I figured I would just write that in there. So, yeah, that's the end of my experiences. And now we get into the personal statement, which is essentially your why medicine. This video is already almost 26 minutes long, so I am going to kind of just skip over this. Basically, a big motivation of mine to go into medicine was that both my dad and my grandfather died when I was, pretty young. I was 17 and then I think 18. And those experiences kind of reaffirmed that I wanted to go into medicine, and then I described some things I did to confirm that passion, and then I ended with kind of where I want to go from there. So, now we get into my school list and my letters of rec. I used a committee letter through my post-bac program because I felt like I had done better in the post-bac program, so I wanted that committee to represent me. I can do a video on letters of rec separately. And then this letter of good standing, for some reason, Albert Einstein required a letter of good standing if I had done a post-bac program, even though the post-bac program letter does inherently say I'm in good standing, because otherwise I wouldn't write it, but whatever, so that's what that is. I highlighted the schools that have offered me interviews so far. So BU, Case Western, Zucker, Drexel, Emory, Quinnipiac, Icahn, Kaiser, New York Medical College, Renaissance School of Medicine at Stony Brook, USF, UCSD, University of Michigan, University of Pittsburgh. I got an acceptance to BU, so let me mark that or something. I don't know. There we go. Case Western put me on the alternate list, which is kind of like a wait list. Zucker hasn't released decisions. I got accepted to Drexel. I got accepted to Emory. Quinnipiac hasn't released decisions. This Eastern Virginia Medical School is in blue because I didn't finish the secondary because I just it was the last one I worked on and I didn't feel like it. I was rejected from Geisel at Dartmouth, rejected from GW, rejected from Georgetown. Interviewed at Icahn, still haven't released decisions. Kaiser, I interviewed in October, and they haven't said anything. I know they accepted people from my interview date, so it's kind of feeling like a rejection, but I haven't gotten the official rejection yet, so. Mayo Clinic rejected me, NYU rejected me, New York Medical College hasn't released decisions yet. Renaissance School of Medicine, I literally got this interview an hour ago, so obviously no decisions yet. USF waitlisted me. UCSD also waitlisted me. So, these things might change. Stanford rejected me. Brown rejected me. And all these rejections are pre-interview. Chicago rejected me. University of Michigan deferred me. So that's they're still reviewing my app. So I don't know. UNC rejected me. University of Pittsburgh hasn't released decisions yet. And Virginia Commonwealth rejected me. So as I said, it's still January, so I have a few more months to get interviews and acceptances, so this might change, but as of right now, this is where we're at. So that sums it up. I don't know what this is. This is just kind of irrelevant stuff. We don't care about that. So there you go. That was my full AMCAS application. This is a very long video, but hopefully it helps some of you kind of know how to structure your application, hopefully answer any questions about when to submit, how to structure your activities, yada, yada. yeah, I never know how to end videos. I always feel like I'm like, all right, whatever. Okay. Um, that's all. Thanks for watching, guys.